Ladies and gentlemen, join me today. We're going to discuss why brain scans, blood chemistry, genetic tests, all of this are completely useless when it comes to healing and well-being. As you can see, we got some crazy looking clouds behind me today. Not sure on the validity of the clouds themselves, but they look pretty cool, so we'll give them the pass. So there's an idea out there that we need blood tests to be able to tell us what our health is. Biomarkers, things of that nature, they give us a little range. If you're within the range, you're healthy. If you're not, you're unhealthy. Similar concept when it comes to brain scans. There is a proper brain scan, a healthy brain scan in a way. And there are also genetic tests where if you have a certain genetic construction, you're supposed to be healthier than people without that genetic construction. So very similar concepts. We can talk about all three of them kind of just looking at one underlying concept. Obviously there's some validity to normal ranges in a way. If you are way off in one direction, or your brain scans only show that you're using one part of your brain and you're not using another part of your brain, obviously this tells us something. But when it comes to health and it comes to healing, these are results of another cause, right? These are effects of another cause. The brain scan, the brain activity is not the cause, and the blood chemistry is not the cause. Something in our environment had to have caused this change. That is one of the first premises that I think is really important, and you might fundamentally disagree with this, and then that's a whole other discussion, but the idea that we adapt to our environments, right? Our environments depict our, blood chemistry. It depicts our brain scan. It depicts our genes, our genetic expression, everything like this, right? I don't think there's too many people out there that would disagree with the idea that we adapt to our environment. So following this, another premise that, many people in the modern sense especially disagree with is that disease is not random, right? So that if you have an abnormal brain scan or abnormal blood chemistry, I would say that there is a reason for that, and I think it's environmental. And so the cause doesn't reside in the scan, in the brain activity in that case. It does not reside in your genetics, and it does not reside in your blood chemistry. You might try to disagree with this. I mean, it would fundamentally contradict physics and the laws of cause and effect, things of that nature, right? So I don't really know how you can disagree with that. Everything has a causal relationship, and they just aren't going far enough, right? So there's these two fundamental principles that I think this conversation is based in, and the reality of the situation is that these brain scans, these blood chemistry, genetic tests, all this, it only serves the establishment and practitioners. It doesn't serve the individuals. It certainly serves the pharmaceutical industry and the supplement industry as well, and diagnosis in a way. Although you can't diagnose psychological illnesses with brain scans, as stated by the worst text in history, the DSM, but you can certainly diagnose based on blood chemistry. And sure, again, there's some validity to the diagnoses, but it doesn't help address the root cause. Or if you have high cholesterol, they'll try to just put you on a statin or something like that, right? Or if you have poor thyroid labs, they're just going to give you another pharmaceutical drug. And the greenwashed naturopathy allopathic point of view, right, which is kind of taken over, I would just give you a supplement, right? You have high cholesterol, I'll take this supplement. High blood pressure, take this supplement. You have thyroid, take this supplement, right? So it's a very allopathic way of dealing with it, not very holistic at all, in my opinion. Note on brain scans, they can't be used for diagnosis in a clinical setting, but from a research perspective, it's certainly used as sort of a telling sign of certain mental illnesses. Like they try to find these consistencies, right? But it is trash, because they'll look at depression, they'll look at two depressed people. One has a hyperactive part of their brain, and another person that has the same symptoms of depression has completely opposite activity in their brain. So there's really no consistency when it comes to looking at brain scans. And even with blood chemistry, if you take blood panels, you look at symptoms versus blood chemistry, it's never going to align perfectly, right? But what the allopaths will try to do if they have their blood chemistry, they'll just try to, prescribe based on the blood chemistry, right? So looking at blood levels, stuff like that. So obviously my perspective and sort of the terrain perspective, which is where fundamentally I learn most of what I know, is that we need to look upstream, right? Credit to Dr. Bailey, of course, for that terminology, but you need to look at the most root cause, right? At the deepest level. How deep can we go, right? And it always resides in the environment, right? The root cause always resides in your environment. Are you living like a real human being is the question essentially, right? Eating whole foods, eating real foods, getting outside, getting some sun, going to bed at a certain time, blue light after bed, all this good stuff, right? You need to be looking at stuff like that. Electromagnetic frequencies, the list goes on and on and on. Of course, it always comes down to toxicities and deficiencies. And of course, here we could probably make a psychological argument too, right? Does our psyche shape our environment? Does our brain and our mind shape our habits and our actions? Another interesting argument. That'll be discussed in other videos. But nevertheless, we need to address the root cause. It's always in the environment. That's very important to know. So again, brain scans are useless, right? Because they just tell us a fraction, right? A picture, a snapshot, if you will, of a moment in time, and we're trying to induce from this very specific idea, right? To me, if you're looking at, the mind, the brain, if you want to reduce the mind to the brain, I think that's probably problematic in and of itself, but it's really important, I think, to just address the individual. And I would take a perspective like that on all matters when it comes to well-being and health. Whether it be physical ailments, psychological ailments, spiritual ailments, we need to look at the individual. We can't treat people like brain scans, and we cannot treat people like blood chemistry, right? Because we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. We're missing the person. It becomes very routine and systematic, which is not how health and well-being should be approached whatsoever, in my opinion. So the brain scan and the blood chemistry is useless, in my opinion, when it comes to true health and wellness. You can make a point that, maybe in emergency situations, you can use blood chemistry to tell that you need a certain nutrient, whatever. There might be emergency situations where it's helpful. There might be emergency situations where it's unhelpful, right? Where you miss something, right? Because you have to test for each specific thing. So you can also miss things. Brain scans are never going to be helpful. Brain scans are a result. They are not a cause. Same with blood chemistry. Same with genetic testing. They are all results. They are all manifestations. They are all expressions of our environment. Now, a lot of people, even in the naturopath world, will run blood and they'll try to prescribe supplements. Maybe there's a case for short-term supplement use. This is sort of a different conversation, but it certainly depends on the supplement. As long as you're in the realm of whole, unadulterated foods, I would say that it's acceptable. Unless it's an emergency situation, then of course you can kind of broaden your horizons in a way. But of course, at the end of the day, it's always best to address the root cause. That is fundamentally what I'm most concerned with. If ever I work with an individual, I treat them as an individual. I do not treat them as a blood chemistry sheet. I do not treat them as a brain scan. I would probably never use these in my practice either. I don't think that they take a truly holistic perspective. Unless you're looking at emergency situations, very, very different, right? So we need to understand where we're coming from, what the approach is, what the goal is. If you're looking for true wellness, true well-being in all aspects of your life, from a truly holistic perspective, you don't need brain scans. You do not need blood chemistry. You do not need genetic testing. What you need to do is live like a human being. And I think that we can approach this conversation very simply, right? And we have on this channel many times before. But we always must address the root cause, and this resides in the environment. And there might be a time where you do need to address the mind. If you're unable to act properly as a human being, some of us can get stuck. So there might be a case for addressing the mind. I'll link a video to a little bit of a discussion on there. We did a podcast on that as well. But regardless, our environment is everything, Whatever it may be, our environment is everything. We adapt to our environments in every single way, psychologically, mentally, right? Spiritually. We adapt to our environments physically, very, very clearly as well. So if you want to be healthy, you need to live like a real human being. So you need to look at what your ancestors were doing, live according to their practices, unadulterated foods, nature, sunlight, avoiding these modern toxicities, using them to your advantage, but not letting them control you as an individual. Hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to give away a book at 2,500 subscribers. We're growing pretty quick. Love you all, guys. Thanks for listening. Take care.